Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. My name is Greg Gavignon. I'm the president of the Business Council of BC, and I'm going to act as your MC today for the news conference. I want to welcome the many Indigenous, post-secondary, municipal, not-for-profit, community, and business leaders from both small and large firms that combined are significant employers in our province to join us at today's event. I want to thank each of you for taking the time to join us for this announcement from all over British Columbia. Before we begin today and share this plan for economic recovery for British Columbia and for BC families and businesses, I want to gratefully acknowledge the numerous traditional territories of BC's 203 First Nations that each of us are presently located on. I'm in my office in downtown Vancouver on the traditional lands of the Coast Salish peoples, specifically the ancestral lands of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh. And I want to thank their people for the ability to live and work and raise our families here and thank them for the ability to do business on their territory today. Over the last several months, we've all learned that we can't take our health, our jobs, or our economy for granted. The pandemic has changed everything. Its impact has been felt in every part of BC and around the world in the worst economic downturn in a century. Since March, the number of people without a job in our province has risen by more than 230,000 people. And by June, the unemployment rate reached an unthinkable 13% and a record 29% for young people under the age of 25. As we face an uncertain future for our families and businesses, we need a plan that will set us on a course for economic and job-rich recovery. That's why the business community is humbly offering our plan for families and businesses today to provide 24 recommendations to build a stronger tomorrow starting today. Speakers are going to share with you from Indigenous leadership and leaders from key sectors and regions from around the province, their generational and specific perspectives within our province, within our economy, and their hope and confidence for the future. We're going to conclude the remarks today with media Q&A, and ideally our goal is to have this done before noon. So it's my pleasure to introduce a true leader and the volunteer chair of the Business Council of British Columbia, Jeff Swag. Jeff goes to work each day, I know, with the goal of making BC and Canada a better place for his employees, for the communities they operate in, and the partnerships they have with Indigenous peoples. Jeff is the president and CEO of Mosaic Forest Management, and it's my pleasure to introduce Jeff. Over to you.
Thank you, Greg. Let me start by confronting the cold, brutal facts. We are facing an economic hole, the likes of which we've not experienced in our lifetimes. The situation is unique. The measures we need to wrestle the pandemic to the ground have also brought the economy to its knees. And the reality is that we're going to confront headwinds going forward. We've worked together to manage the health challenge. We now need to work together to manage the economic challenge. And given the size of the hole, we need bold action. We need to recognize that certain parts of the economy will take years to recover. Some may be permanently impaired. The pandemic has created dislocation, accelerated trends, and fundamentally changed the way we do things. Large segments of our economy, both profit and not-for-profit, are being significantly impacted. And unfortunately, more pain is coming. Large numbers of jobs are being underpinned by government support. Mortgage deferrals are coming to an end. Rent subsidies and wage support will be tapered off. Government loans to businesses are being maxed out. Businesses are already, unfortunately, declaring bankruptcy, and others are simply shuttering their stores. The trend, unfortunately, will accelerate in the coming months. But the untold story of the pandemic is the impact on the mental health and well-being of British Columbians. Our social programs are needed now more than ever. But we will not be able to continue to provide appropriate social support if tax-generating economic activity does not recover. The status quo is simply not an option. We need a plan to put people back to work. BC represents the largest employers in British Columbia, employing approximately 500,000 British Columbians. And in putting this plan together, we canvassed over 100 businesses, Indigenous groups, academic institutions, and community leaders. We also connected with our next leadership. This is a group of over 700 promising young leaders among our membership. We solicited input from every corner of British Columbia and in every major economic sector. The approach was apolitical and agnostic as to source. The consultation process generated literally hundreds of ideas, and the work was distilled down, as Greg indicated, to 24 recommendations that we humbly submit for your consideration, 5 of which will produce immediate tangible results, and the balance will set us up for the months and years to come. We recognize that many of these suggestions will stimulate discussion and debate. Some of the ideas will certainly evolve as we breathe life into them. The point is, we're all in this together. We all have a role to play in fighting the pandemic, and we all have a role to play in putting British Columbians back to work. The goal was to create the blueprint for a job-rich recovery. With this plan, business has a role to play by rehiring laid-off staff and hiring new ones, by buying locally where possible, and seeking BC solutions for BC problems. Leveraging our strengths and potential, we can build a stronger tomorrow, starting today. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jock Finlayson, our Executive Vice President and Chief Policy Officer at the Council, who's going to set the stage as to how we got here.
Thank you very much, Jeff and colleagues. I'm just going to take us through a very, very quick context setting for the economic environment that we're currently facing in BC. If we go to my first slide, I'll start with the global backdrop. We're interested in what's happening in BC and Canada, obviously, but we're in a wider world that's being profoundly affected by the first modern global pandemic, and the carnage that is being inflicted on global economies is truly unprecedented. This is a forecast from the International Monetary Fund. You can see they're expecting the world economy to contract by about 5% this year on an average annual basis before staging a recovery in 2021. To put that in context, if we go back to the 2008-9 global financial crisis, the world economy actually still grew positively in that year. You have to go all the way back to the Depression of the 1930s to find a period when global economic activity has actually diminished on an average annual basis. We see Canada, the US looking at declines in 2020 in the vicinity of 8%, Europe even a greater drop in economic activity, and China, which alone is responsible for 1/3 of the growth in the world economy in the past decade, is likely to eke out slightly positive growth because they've been successful in taming the virus, and the impact it had on their economy is largely now behind them. The next slide, we switch to British Columbia. The Business Council is looking for a decline this year in BC's real gross domestic product of 7.8%. That's not dissimilar to the number that Finance Minister Carol James shared with British Columbians in her fiscal snapshot back on the 14th of July. That is truly an unprecedented decline in our economy in BC. In 2009, in the throes of the previous global financial crisis, BC's economy shrank by 2.6%. So we're looking at about a 3 times larger drop in economic activity. And it's going to take quite a long period of time. We estimate at least 2 full years, potentially 2.5 or even 3 years, before we get back to the level of economic activity that we enjoyed in the fourth quarter of 2019. We go to the next slide, just identifying some of the industries in BC that have been hit hardest. This will not be a surprise to most people participating today. Obviously, air travel has come almost to a halt. The accommodation sector has taken an enormous hit, along with restaurants, food services, bars and pubs. Retail, which seems to be coming back quite buoyantly, took an enormous hit back in March and April and May. Entertainment, leisure, personal recreation services as well has been severely impacted. Film and TV production starting up again, but they basically came to a halt for 3 months. Manufacturing output probably down 10 or 11% this year when we get the numbers. and real estate related activity and professional services will also see some declines in business revenues and overall output. The next slide, we switch over to the job market. This has really grabbed the most attention, understandably. We've seen extraordinary job losses in the province, a little bit of recovery in the last couple of months, but we're down 235,000 jobs since February. To put that in perspective, that is equivalent to 5 full years of job creation in BC when economic times are good. So we're still in a very, very deep hole in terms of the job market. And one of the real risks here is that some of these jobs, maybe quite a large number, will not come back because of economic restructuring, because of the use of technology, and also because of thousands of companies on the cusp of going insolvent or out of business. The next slide, I just unpack a little bit more what's been happening in the BC job market since February. We've seen declines in employment of about 70,000 for young people under the age of 25, about 130,000 for the core working age population, and 37,000 for older workers 55 and over. As Greg mentioned, the unemployment rate is 13%. For young adults, it stands at 29%, a record high. The next slide, we just take another dive at the job market in BC, looking at some of the industries and sectors where we've seen the biggest job declines. Again, not an enormous surprise. These are large sectors in terms of the numbers of people employed, so job losses correspondingly have been quite substantial. A combination in food, wholesale, retail, trade. We've seen some construction declines, over 30,000 jobs, and you can see on the slide the rest of the industries. So to close, let me just say that coming out of this pandemic, we're going to be in a deep hole in British Columbia. We're in a world that's going to look different, thicker national borders, economy is slow, I think, to recover around the world, supply chains under stress, an accelerating pace of technological change, particularly in the digital space, and very importantly for a small economy like BC, heightened competition globally and here in North America for business investment, for talent, and for high-value economic activity. So against that backdrop, we need to focus both on kickstarting the economic recovery in the coming 6 to 18 months and putting in place a stronger foundation for prosperity over the medium term. And those are the twin objectives that motivated the Business Council's economic plan. So thanks for your attention, Greg, and I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks very much for that, Jock, and thanks again for all the work you and the Council's economic team have been doing to dig into the numbers and provide a common fact base. You know, as I mentioned earlier, we are joined today by numerous leaders from across our province and with different perspectives and different leadership obligations. And each are going to speak to a need for a stronger tomorrow starting today and what it means to them, what it means to their communities, to their employees, and the families that they represent. And the importance of ability to grow our economy, which ultimately lifts our quality of life and provides governments with the revenue they need to look after the services we expect in those most vulnerable. As I said earlier, Indigenous peoples, as we note in the plan, need to be at the heart of BC society and our economy for true reconciliation and the ability for us to support self-determination. And among many nations in BC that are making significant progress and doing so in partnership with business, one nation is joining us today and leading their people in prosperity and self-determination for partnerships that will make us stronger tomorrow. It's my privilege now to introduce the President of the Tahltan Central Government, Chad Day. Chad, over to you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I really appreciate the invitation. I make my home in Telegraph Creek in Tahltan Territory, and I have another home for my children in Smithers in Wet'suwet'en Territory. Just want to say that my heart is with all those people, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, that have recently lost loved ones. I know that we haven't been able to gather. It's been very difficult on a lot of people out there, and just want to acknowledge that. When we talk about the Tahltan Nation, this is a very large territory. It's 11% of British Columbia in the northwest of the province. Our northern territory actually goes up into the Yukon. We've been a mining nation since time immemorial, and in British Columbia, Prior to the Silvertip mine going into care and maintenance, we actually had 3 of the active 18 mines in British Columbia. The mining sector in our territory creates jobs for anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200 people every year. The majority of the mineral exploration expenditures in British Columbia take place in Tahltan territory. So it's a very isolated region, but it's a very mineral-rich region. We're well known for the Golden Triangle, and right now we have the Silvertip mine, the Brucejack mine, the Red Chris mine. We have a Run of the River project. We have a large new logging company that's about to get up and running next year. And then we've been involved in the guide outfitting industry and the other ecotourism industries for a long time. I want to commend everyone that's done the work on this plan. It's a difficult time out there right now. I appreciate what you said about Indigenous people being at the heart of a lot of these decisions and the growth and the bounce back, especially after the UNDRIP legislation that was introduced by the province. And I can tell you that when it comes to the Tahltan Nation, we take a lot of pride in being reasonable and good partners with government and with industry. I think it's very important that Indigenous people spend a lot of time working out their governance, and I'm really excited to work with other people and to collaborate and learn from other Indigenous people, and so that we can teach Indigenous people from our own successes and failures in different areas. We have a large territory. We have a lot of economic development going on, and I've always been very excited and willing to work with other industries through initiatives like the British Columbia Regional Mining Alliance and with others. So again, thanks for welcoming me into this, and really looking forward to this Indigenous Economic Development Center of Excellence that's in the plan, because I think that when Indigenous people are strong and when we're all in the same room making decisions and prospering together, it's just going to be a better, brighter future for all British Columbians, and we're up to the challenge. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Chad. I really appreciate it. It's now my privilege to introduce Sherry Zhao. She's the Senior Manager at MyTax. MyTax is one of the country's most interesting and important organizations that are working to build skills and link post-secondary education institutions, students, and their talent with businesses to find solutions and improve productivity and better outcomes that make a difference. Sherry's also a leader among our 700 Next Leaders at the BC Business Council Next Leaders program. It's the next generation of entrepreneurs, business, and community leaders that are impacting BC today and have profoundly been impacted by COVID-19. So despite the challenges in front of them, I know that Sherry and her colleagues are confident about the future, and I'm confident that it's in their hands with our support and our partnership. So Sherry, thanks for joining us today, and over to you.
Thank you, Greg. It is my honor to join you today from our Vancouver office on UBC campus to really discuss how all of us here in BC can work together to recover from the economic challenges of the pandemic. I'm Dr. Sherry Zhao, and I'm very proud to be representing MyTax, a not-for-profit organization that fosters economic growth and innovation. We address business challenges with solutions from academic institutions. Through our innovation internships, we offer work-integrated learning that builds talent skills to enhance productivity. It is a tangible investment for industry, and it develops job-ready, highly qualified personnel. It connects students with companies and companies with talent. And it creates new employment opportunities. So to make this happen, I am very lucky to work closely with stakeholders and partners from industry and academia to improve BC's talent landscape. The past few months have seen MyTax pivot and rapidly roll out support to businesses. We have been funding COVID-19 specific projects and placing business students into SMEs to help them adjust practices to this new reality. And we have seen tremendous short-term successes. But I am also concerned about the future because young people have been and will continue to be impacted disproportionately by this pandemic. Among my peers, we worry that we will shoulder the economic consequences. We worry that our careers will be stagnant, and we worry our skills and experiences become irrelevant. And all of this is on top of globalization, technology disruption, and our aging society. As much as we worry, we know there's hope. I am certain that we have to be comfortable with uncertainty. So we have to be ready with training and reskilling to constantly adapt. And we have to act now. Work integrated learning can help us. And for example, a group of MyTax interns worked with a Vancouver tech firm, 1Qubit, to launch a chest radiology AI tool. Not only does their work directly impacts the management of COVID-19, it also proves work integrated learning to be a viable way to provide young people, to provide value to young people and also the businesses. More than ever, we will need to rely on innovation to get our economy back on track. And equipping and deploying talent with skills is one of the best ways to do so. We want BC to be a leader in work integrated learning, and we want more BC students to access such opportunities. Today's students, tomorrow's innovators. And at MyTax, we are ready to continue to work from a very unique position to support the system and working with partners to build a brighter future. We are loaded spring. Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry. For those of you that know Sherry, she's a dynamo that gets things done, and I'm not surprised the amount of work that post-secondary institutions and leaders and MyTax have been doing to really help businesses and individuals through this difficult time. As we look towards the future, disruptive technology companies with world-leading solutions to our biggest challenges are the things we're going to need to scale businesses, to create jobs, and also address the biggest challenges of our time. It's going to be critical to our economic recovery. How we manage the planet's climate and environment while creating healthy foods, higher yields on less space is going to be critical to our sustainability here in British Columbia and globally. So today we're joined by one of the many companies in our province that's doing just that. Terramera was founded and is growing exponentially here in British Columbia, but they are known around the world as true global disruptors that think big. In fact, Terramera and their technology in late April of this year was recognized as one of the world-changing ideas of 2020 by Fast Company. Fast Company, as you know, is a globally recognized leading magazine that covers the intersection of technology, design, creativity, leadership, innovation, and business, and identifying world-changing trends and ideas that are going to make a difference for the way we live in the future. And so I'm excited to have Karn Manhouse, the CEO and founder of Terramera, here to speak with us today. Karn?
Thanks, Greg. And thank you to the BC Business Council for all your hard work on this plan for British Columbia and the opportunity to join you here today. We have a wide range of BC interests represented at this event, and that speaks both to the strength and urgency of the Stronger Tomorrow Starting Today initiative. Terramera is proud to stand behind this initiative. As I see it, BC faces three critical challenges today: public health, and the need to be vigilant in combating current and future surges of COVID-19, economic health, as Jock's sobering overview highlights, and climate change and environmental health, which directly impacts BC's food security and our future. As a scientist, a tech company founder, and a former policymaker, I view this challenging time through several different filters. As a scientist, against the backdrop of COVID, I see the imperative we have to address the climate crisis with innovation. Our company's on a mission to reduce global synthetic pesticide loads 80% by 2030 in agriculture. And we're working with partners around the world to tackle these problems in BC and share what we've learned around the world. But right here at home, we know that food security is impacted by climate change, reducing yields at a time when we're expecting 1 million more residents here in BC. Globally, around 1 in 10 people don't have enough food to eat. And according to the Food and Agriculture Organization, global food production will need to increase 38% by 2030. BC's existing food production simply won't meet the dietary needs of our growing population while also meeting the greenhouse gas reduction goals of Clean BC. Across the province, we've seen growing concerns about the impacts of climate change. Extreme weather events such as BC wildfires and flooding in recent years have had catastrophic impacts on the sector and the profitability of farmers and ranchers. Add the impact of COVID to the mix, and we have a situation that requires action. Climate change in agriculture is a serious issue for BC farmers and all of us who depend on them, especially now. As a founder of a tech company focused on clean food and sustainable agriculture, I've seen the rapid scalability of BC innovation firsthand and strongly support that focus in this initiative. Our company workforce, for example, has quadrupled since 2017. We have a team of 135 people now and growing, and our brilliant team hails from over 25 countries around the world. It's evidence we absolutely can draw the best and the brightest to build our ecosystem for BC when we grow high-tech jobs. As a founding member of the Digital Technology Supercluster, I've also seen how organizations that band together across industry, academia, and public policy produce long-lasting change. These kind of partnerships are force multipliers that can grow great little ideas into world-changing ones. And I'm pleased to see that kind of deep collaboration in this initiative. Finally, as a former legislator and someone with experience in public policy, I see the convergence of forces that require action. This truly is the time to act now. A 2020 report commissioned by Premier John Horgan entitled "The Future of BC's Food System" underscored this point with strong recommendations to take action on climate change and agri-tech innovation. From a policy standpoint, we can see what's possible from the example of the Netherlands. Although the Netherlands has less than a quarter of the farmland we have just in BC's Agricultural Land Reserve, or ALR, and are located comparably or further north than us, they have 52 times the agricultural productivity and food exports per acre. The Netherlands have innovated to the point where they can feed their entire population without any trade. And there's no reason we can't do the same. Using the expansion of sustainable agriculture to grow high-tech jobs and the rural economy. Today, we're eating the planet to death, but we can eat it back to health. Regenerative agriculture, for example, involves farming in a way that brings it back into alignment with the land, leaving it better and healthier with each year we farm, while increasing profitability for farmers and improving the health and nutrition of the foods we grow on that farm. It also turns agriculture into ground zero in the fight against climate change. We have a lot of work to do to scale this, and we need innovation, technology, and policy to support it. But BC has this huge opportunity to scale regenerative farming because this province has an agricultural land reserve that contains almost 12 million acres of land. Currently, BC's agriculture and agri-food sector is a $12 billion industry. That's about $1,000 of economic activity for every acre of land. Compare that against the Netherlands with $52,000 of economic activity per acre of farmland that they have. If mobilize the power of our ALR lands with agri-tech innovation, we could create over 500 billion in new economic activity for our economy while feeding our people and the world. And by focusing on regenerative farming through agri-tech and soil innovations in our 12 million acres of ALR, we could lead the change in the world to better nutritious practices and pull around 200 million tons of CO2 equivalent out of the atmosphere, growing to about 2 billion tons, or about a quarter of Canada's total commitment to the Paris Climate Accord, just in the BC ALR alone. So at Terramar, we have a keen eye on 3 elements of this initiative. 1, establishing innovation precincts, including a global agri-tech precinct, which will promote innovation and growth in BC's diverse agri-food and related technology cluster. 2, establishing a carbon offset system to shift to a lower carbon economy and create new economic opportunities for BC businesses and Indigenous communities. 3, creating a clean tech center for innovation and R&D with adequate planning and partnerships. We believe this center can drive high-tech jobs and rural development, sequester carbon, secure BC's food supply, and create global innovation by starting right here at home. Along with key partners, we hope to help drive and develop these agricultural-related proposals and look forward to working with BCBC towards that end. In closing, let me just say that COVID has shown us that by pulling together, we can lead the way in battling a public health crisis. BC has done an outstanding job in that respect. And there's no reason we can't do the same in battling economic and climate challenges. By coming together around this plan and creating the right policies, we can leverage BC agriculture and the original intent and power of BC's farmland in the ALR as a transformative force for our people, our economy, and the environment. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Karn. It's no wonder you're a globally recognized leader in the tech space and agri-food business. So thanks so much for joining us today. Last but not least is a longtime friend of mine and friend of many British Columbians. Dale is the epitome of a community leader. He's a municipal leader that really cares and is daily working on behalf of the people of his region and the province. In looking to stimulate recovery from COVID-19, Dale has been really active over the last several months as the mayor of Dawson Creek in the beautiful Peace Country of northeastern BC. He's focused, and as you're going to see, Dale has an infectious, positive energy and enthusiasm for the work he does. He'll not just advocate for Dawson Creek, for businesses and investment and inclusion, but also working with leaders and other mayors from across the north and chiefs of Indigenous communities who see and are acting on the potential of British Columbia, both for the people of the north and for our province. Dale Bumstead, a true leader and mayor of Dawson Creek, thanks for joining us today.
Greg, thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here today and to join you, and I appreciate the opportunity to be invited. I'm speaking today from the city of Dawson Creek and part of the traditional territory of Treaty 8. I'm a proud member of the Métis Nation of British Columbia, as well as proudly the mayor of the city of Dawson Creek and my hometown. So Tawau, Tansei. Businesses across BC and in communities have closed and they're barely hanging on. Our communities and a survey from BC Chamber and our own local business community are saying that businesses today, 75% of them are struggling right now with reduced income. 70% of them are saying we're struggling with increased operating costs. And that small business community is the foundation for us in our communities. And Jock used some of the statistics of some of the sectors, and our hotel sectors today in Dawson Creek and in the region are operating at 10 to 20% occupancy. They should be at 70 to 90%. So this plan today provides recommendations to help get people back to work and stimulate and add confidence to our community. And it certainly offers a lot in that regard to my community and certainly to our region. In looking to stimulate the recovery from COVID-19, the shock and the recession, our provincial policymakers absolutely must pay attention and act for BC's leading export sectors and the natural resources, such as forestry, mining, the energy, and the agri-food. And we need to pursue some much needed structural reforms to stimulate investment in infrastructure that makes our economy more productive. And when it comes to increasing capital investment and boosting business productivity and delivering higher wages and salaries, for us, replacing the antiquated PST with a modern consumption tax would be a significant and key step forward. Slicing that PST in half for 2 years saves consumers and households billions of dollars. Lower income families would absolutely particularly gain from this lower sales tax. In Dawson Creek and certainly all of our border communities along the Alberta border, this new and revamped PST would keep that money at home and allow that confidence to stimulate our own local economies and the provincial economy. BC businesses have supported the carbon pricing as part of the policy toolkit to move to a lower carbon economy. Businesses need to have certainty and consistency to see business commit to adopt a form of carbon pricing that offers protection to BC's low carbon energy, forestry, mining, manufacturing, and agriculture industry, similar to what the same industries enjoy elsewhere in Canada. And for me, that's the two kind of messages I really want to emphasize today. This plan really is about stimulating the opportunity for investment in British Columbia and in our small business, and offer the confidence to consumers and business for that investment. I want to close off by saying how much we appreciate the work that you guys have done, and it's our pleasure to be a part of it today. Thank you.
Thanks, Dale. As you can see, Dale's job never ends. He gets calls at every time of the day and night. So thanks so much, Dale, for your words. And I just got to say, Thank you to all of our speakers. You're so busy and you're doing so much on a regular basis on behalf of your companies and organizations and communities. For taking the time today is really important, but also special for us. I just want to conclude the conversation and the news conference this morning with just a couple of words. You know, as many have said, our collective efforts at flattening the COVID curve so far have now been extraordinary. But we have been working together collaboratively with purpose and leadership and focused on outcomes. And we need to have that same approach as we start to rebuild our economy from the worst recession we've seen in a century. Simply hoping for a return to some form of normal and a better future to materialize isn't just going to happen on its own. It requires a clear plan, it requires clear leadership, and it requires purposeful action by all of us, not just governments. The immediate goal must be to create the conditions for people to get back to work, and for businesses and for communities and nations to have the means to invest that will support a stronger economy. Now's the time to stop working around the old rules that have encumbered us and structures that have gotten in the way, and think about how we do things going forward, not the way that we've done them in the past. We can't just hope for change, we need to actually inform it, to create investments that create opportunities and job-rich recovery, and good outcomes that ultimately are shared by every British Columbian. So now's the time for all of us to be purposeful, to act boldly, to employ, to educate, to train our talented people, to leverage our inherent advantages and strengths that you've heard today, and while driving a more innovative economy that supports a better, more inclusive quality of life for all of us. We can be stronger tomorrow, starting today, to the benefit of British Columbians and the generations that follow, but we're going to have to work at it. So we humbly submit today that by acting on these ideas and the plan, that the people of BC can take hold of our future. We can determine it and become more resilient, more prosperous, more inclusive, and healthier together. So thanks for joining us today and in the days ahead. And I'll now open it up to questions from the media. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. We will now take some questions from members of the media. If you can type your questions in the chat function or use the raise hand feature, we'll call on you. And just a reminder to unmute yourself when we call on you so we can hear you. Greg, it looks like you and the team did a fantastic job explaining, and we don't have many questions for you today. So I will open it up to all participants as well on the call with us. If you also have a question, feel free to type that in the chat function or use the raise hand feature as well.
A very efficient and informed crowd. Well, listen, just on behalf of all of you on the line, I think almost 200 individuals in the media, and also our speakers, Dale and Chad and Sherry and Karn and Jock and Jeff. I just want to thank you again for your time today, for your leadership, and for the collaboration that we're all going to have to show in the days and weeks ahead. I want to thank the membership of the Business Council and also the partnerships that we've established in this period of time with small business leaders, with post-secondary institution leaders, with not-for-profit leaders, that ultimately those relationships and those collaborations are going to be so important over the next couple of years, as Jock laid out and as Jeff spoke to, in terms of how we work together to get common purpose outcomes going forward. I just noticed we've got a couple of questions that have just popped here now as well. The first question is, how can the community help support the plan? From Rory. I'll jump in on this, but maybe Dale, if you've got a moment, you can talk to this as well. On the website, strongertomorrowbc.com, there's a myriad of opportunities for you to participate individually, collectively, or as a community. What we'd like you to do is share your stories on the things that you could be doing within the plan to actually build back a job-rich recovery, to build a more inclusive community, to drive economic activity, to create the conditions, if you're a municipality or a region, for investment to come to create those jobs and new scalable businesses going forward. But Dale, specifically as a mayor of a community in a region, what would be some of the things that the rest of us could be doing to help?
Thanks, Greg. Honestly, for us, it's we're really peeling the onion right now in terms of looking at the services and how we provide them, create the confidence for industry and all of them to be able to come back in to get the reinvestment back into the forestry and into the energy sector and into the mining and agri-food, as Karna talked about earlier. And for us, it's how do we create that? There's still the public health issue about people still worrying about that. The virus, and so how do we make sure that we keep that balance in place to ensure that we manage the social distancing and the health of our community and our residents, but also ensuring that we drive into our community how important it is for all of us to be supporting our local business and encouraging that investment back into our industries to help build and create that economy for our communities, because all of these sectors, and Jock's slide showed it, all of these sectors are real jobs, and they're people that aren't working, and those folks are what spin into our community. And without that build, all of a sudden it starts to affect a much larger segment, and all of a sudden you start seeing the real estate sector being affected by price of housing, and so there's all those things that really impact the community. We need to drive the development and the confidence and stimulate the opportunities that are created locally for our industry.
Thanks very much for that, Dale. Question from Sue Page at the Digital Supercluster around the role of technology. And I think, Sue, as you may know in the plan, and I'll maybe turn to Karn and or to Sherry, but endemic in the plan is the fact that we are now in the digital age, and it has accelerated dramatically during the span of COVID. There isn't anything that all of us haven't experienced in terms of learning online, purchasing online, entertaining and streaming entertainment online, socializing, dating, and even seeing our doctor online over the last several months. And that's true of business too, a rapid escalation among our members that have moved forward on technology implementation that's 3 and 5 years ahead of where it was just a couple of months ago. And so we lay out around homegrown adoption and creation of innovation moving forward. Karn talked about the agri-tech sector, but we also focus on innovation precincts, one around life sciences, which we have a truly global and significant advantage in terms of genomics, in terms of our ability to look at therapeutics, companies like Upcelera and Xenon and Zymeworks in those spaces that are in the middle of the COVID fight, stem cell and others. But how do we scale those businesses, and how do we build out greater opportunities, including advanced manufacturing, where we could manufacture therapeutics and pharmaceuticals here in British Columbia using clean energy and clean water. And moreover, the opportunity around visual and digital opportunities for government. So we ask within the plan that BC become the first jurisdiction in North America to become a digital regulator in climate and in land and in our environment. And so in that context, that creates huge opportunities for efficiencies in government, better protection of the environment, better utilization of investment capital, and faster decision-making with greater clarity. But Karn and Sherry, feel free to jump in on that.
Sure. Thanks for that question. And I think we all recognize how important technology is in our lives, probably more important now during COVID than ever. Technology is really the great multiplier, not just in making our lives easier, but actually transforming industries. As we've come into this period of time that is really unprecedented, we've realized that, we can't take for granted some of the things that we have done and built. And even as a company, for us, we realized during the shutdown, we need to invest more in understanding, in automation, in making sure that we're prepared for any kind of future shutdowns. But one of the great things about technology is that we can use it to not only understand problems better, really understand how we can transform industries. I talked about agriculture, but the same is true of life sciences, healthcare, mining, forestry, as Mayor Bumstead talked about. And what's great about the technology that we have today is we can ask much more complex questions. So we can look at ways that we were previously doing business and look at the effects that it has on health or the environment, and ask much more complex questions to say, how can we design processes and allow the system to actually work not only more profitably, but but also more efficiently and more in line with the environment. And I think that's really the power that BC has right now in investing in some of these key industries like life sciences and agriculture and resource industries and clean tech with technology to become really a leader in the world of saying, how can we use advanced technologies like automation, robotics, machine learning, AI, quantum computing, where we have some of the leaders in the world to be able to transform these industries, our lives, and the world.
Thanks very much for that, Karen. Go ahead, Sherry.
And just to add on Greg and also Karen's comments, I think technology is already proven to be really part of every life, no matter it's professionally or personally. And being a technology-driven province or economy, we can really attract more talent and more investment into the province. So it's definitely crucial for the recovery of the economy. And being BC, just to add on the comments from the two speakers, being BC, I think we are in a really unique position that we have a very diverse workforce, and also because of our geographical proximity to Pacific region, that we are in a tremendous position to attract the foreign direct investment by leading in technologies and tagging onto all the existing clusters that we already have: quantum computing, digital health, and agri-tech, and to really help transform the traditional sectors and industries that we already very strong in. So absolutely, technology is playing a crucial role in the recovery.
Can I just add, Greg, we've had a really interesting aspect around technology where there's been previous centers of technology that have drawn the best and the brightest in the world to create these clusters that create an economic engine for that area. And I talked about the Netherlands for agri-tech, but also, everyone knows Silicon Valley or Boston or San Diego as these clusters of innovation. And right now we've been in this interesting period where some of the best and the brightest, including from the US, but also from around the world, and people who have been drawn to these US centers don't want to be there anymore. And we have an opportunity to draw some of that talent to British Columbia to help grow our knowledge base so that young people growing up in BC have a bigger community and a place that actually has some of the leaders in the world actually building out technologies that can actually change British Columbia and have a huge effect. So it's an interesting time we're in, especially because of our location in British Columbia, to be able to draw some great talent.
Thanks for that, Karen. I know that we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about, and we often forget about, just the real strength of our post-secondary institutions and research capacity at our research universities, SFU, UBC, UVic, UNBC, as well as BCIT and other applied learning centers. I know, Karen, you benefited from both SFU and BCIT. But the other side of that is again, the power of collaboration. The quantum center that's been set up in Surrey with SFU, somebody mentioned, I think Sherry mentioned 1Qubit, which is truly a global leader in quantum computing and quantum algorithms. They've been able to recruit some of that talent globally into the marketplace because, again, there's a focus of attention and people want to come where the best and the brightest in the world are. And it inspires British Columbian students, whether they're from Tahltan territory or whether they're from Kerrisdale, the ability to actually fully see a future for themselves in innovation and technology. But that technology in and of itself gets applied to forestry or to mining or to transportation or to biochemistry or to some of the interesting things that are going on in machine learning. I know that President Day's got some constrained time. If anyone has a question for Chad, feel free to put it in. He'd be happy to respond to that. I've got a question in the interim, though, one speculative and part of it within the plan itself. I'll maybe turn it to Jock, if I can, and to Jeff, which is what do we need to see to open the borders up going forward? And secondly, uncertainty really around added regulation, added costs at the federal, provincial, or municipal level. Is there an ability to actually just pause that for a short period of time? So Jock, maybe if I can, I'll turn to you first, and then Jeff, you may have some comments
Well,
to make
thanks,
as well.
Greg. I mean, the border does remain open for freight shipments, as you know, but for personal travel, it is closed. Truly an extraordinary situation. It's been several months now. I think, to be blunt, opening the U.S.-Canada border to normal traffic is going to take a dramatic decline in the infection rate in the United States. And unfortunately, we've been going the other way on that. So the likelihood of the border reopening or going back to the world we knew back in February, I think, is quite slim until we see much better numbers coming out of the United States and a continued success in keeping the curve flat here in Canada. On the regulatory side, I mean, this is not a time for governments at any level to be adding to regulatory uncertainty or to be doing anything that actually adds costs for business. In fact, just the opposite. The business councils, as you know, has advocated a moratorium on all new legislative policy and regulatory measures that would add costs for business until we're through the worst of this crisis. So we will continue to advocate that, and I think it makes perfect sense to pause on the pathway to sort of adding regulatory burdens, which we've been on relentlessly here in Canada for the past 3 or 4 years. So this is a time where our decision makers need to recognize the priority is getting people back to work and minimizing the number of business failures.
Jeff, you may have some comments. Just you're globally exposed as an exporter of forest products, so you might.
Indeed, and this is truly a moment in time, and we need to recognize that we are a trade exposed province. We both benefit from, but need to recognize the risk associated with our foundational industries and their exposure to the competitive environment globally. And in times of adversity, the conversation that we're having around this virtual table today is happening throughout the world. How every country, every jurisdiction, every province is thinking about how to support its businesses, its economic activity, and how they're going to thrive in the future in the global marketplace. And it's for that reason that we need to be very careful today around the regulatory approach for these foundational industries that are trade exposed, with an eye to ensuring that they maintain or enhance their competitiveness going forward. And we know we just do not have the luxury of ignoring the economic impact of regulatory changes. We have to fight for every single job right now, given the economic hole that we find ourselves today as British Columbians. And it's for that reason that we need to work together with all the relevant stakeholders and government in an agnostic way to think about how do we reform policy to make us even more competitive going forward. And I think we need to recognize, and Jock and Ken and the team at the council have done exceptional work in demonstrating that unfortunately we were not on a good trajectory in British Columbia prior to the pandemic. Many of our key industries are not competitive. They're on the wrong side of the international cash cost curve. And there's a role here certainly to play for industry around investing and the technology conversation, picking up on what others have said. But there's clearly a role as well to work with government around how we ensure that our regulatory framework is as competitive as possible given the circumstances. So, Greg, I think it's an excellent question, and it's absolutely a time of do no harm. But I think it's a moment in time when we turn and think about what can we do to enhance our regulatory environment in order to make our foundational industries even more competitive going forward, particularly those that are trade exposed.
Well, Jeff, thanks very much, and Jock for that. In keeping with today's interest to be collaborative, be purposeful, and to be efficient with our time and make a big impact, I noticed that we're approaching the hour and we promised we'd be concluded by now. The context of the recommendations themselves, 24 of them, 5 of them around things we can act on today, some of which have no cost, some of which have some material cost that ultimately will get economic activity happening with a return on that investment. And then we have 4 specific areas or themes, if you will, within the plan: improving the conditions for hiring and private sector investment, empowering people, talent, and skills, accelerating homegrown innovation, and making the world cleaner and protecting the environment. So the site itself, you can go down and be an active participant. There was a question earlier at strongertomorrowbc.com. That's strongertomorrowbc.com. You can share your story around how you can make your business, your community, or the province itself more economically prosperous, and to get people back to work and rehire both existing employees, how we reskill and retrain those that will require it, but also the ability to create new jobs and new investment opportunities by pursuing the plan. And it's a commitment I know the business community wants to make and wants to have the conditions, as Jeff just talked about, to make that happen here in British Columbia. And then the second part of it is you need to be active around talking about this plan with your neighbors, with your community, with your friends. It's an important opportunity for us to collectively, with governments, business, not-for-profits, Indigenous communities, and others, to work together at common purpose. And we will be successful, as we have been, in managing the COVID curve, if we can do that with a common plan and be practical about executing on the things necessary to get people back to work, families more engaged in the economy and more prosperous, and protecting many people that will be vulnerable as a result of COVID-19, either through lost jobs or lost businesses, or really the reskilling that they may need in order to participate in the economy to come. So with that, I want to thank everyone again for your time today. I want to thank you for all the work that you're going to be doing in the months ahead. And you know that you've got all of the people on this call that participated today, and literally hundreds of thousands of British Columbians behind you to make sure that we're successful together starting today. A stronger British Columbia at strongertomorrowbc.com. Thanks again for joining us.